A couple of weeks ago, I signed up last minute to a half marathon and realized I needed to get my skates on with training. I don't often run, but when I do I tend to do the same old route, which involves going round and round Stoke, Newington's Clissold Park, checking out dogs, watching the skaters and saying hi to the deer. However, this gets boring on a long run, so I decided to head down to the River Lea via Springfield Park, somewhere I'd never been despite having lived in nearby Clapton when I first moved to London. As soon as I left the main road and hit the park, I was amazed. It's so beautiful. How have I never come here before? And that feeling continued as I meandered for miles along the river, feeling like I was back home in the countryside and not in the middle of a polluted city. I'd never have come down to the river if it wasn't running, and got me thinking how great it is as a way of exploration. Some of the places I've found on runs include Abney Park Cemetery in Stoke, Newington, the Chelsea Embankment Gardens. I rarely go to Chelsea, but it's not a bad place to stretch the legs if I'm up for a long run from my Islington flat, and the atmospheric Primrose Hill at night, reveals fellow runner, Harry, an English teacher from London. Since signing up for the half marathon, I've run to work a few times, and despite it being a route I frequently cycle, I kept thinking I was running the wrong way as I didn't recognize half of it. A pub here, a cinema there, all these things I'd never seen because I'd been too busy trying to stay alive by way of swerving cars with drivers who seem intent on injuring me, and dodging pedestrians who step out in front of me. Not to mention trying to stay safe around the small portion of cyclists who appear to have little regard for others' safety. The same goes for those who get the tube or spend their time with their nose in their book, phone, paper on the bus. Running can help you see all those bits you never usually see. Harry makes up his routes on the fly, for this very reason. I find this is the best way to connect the many different places you have been in London but have never had the time to walk between, he says. Since we're always jumping on and off tubes and buses, it's easy to see every area as its own distinct spot, but of course London is a huge metropolis, and sometimes some of the coolest buildings, cafes and lesser-known sites are nestled in slightly forgotten areas. I prefer to have a rough idea of where I am going, mostly so I can work out my mileage. I tend to have a look at a map to give me a general gist of where I am headed, but I think you've just gotta go with the flow, says Patrick, a content writer based in London. I remember being in Mallorca and finding a road that took me to the most incredible view of all the beaches on the island, and I wouldn't have found that if I just stuck to a route. However, leaving too much to spontaneity can mean you end up lost and tired, miles from where you started. I used to live in Kingston upon Thames and set out for a run around Richmond Park thinking I'd do a quick loop, but that would be it, reveals Patrick. My sense of direction sucks. I ended up actually running 18 miles and getting totally lost. I found myself completely lost and disoriented at the weekend during my canal run, 7 miles from home. Stood in the pouring rain trying to work out which of 3 paths I'd just come down at Marsworth Reservoirs. Running is a great way of exploring when you're overseas. 3 years ago, I moved by myself to Sydney and it took me a while to make friends. In bouts of loneliness, I'd lace up and hit the road, either running the epically beautiful Bondi to Coogee Coastal Walk, or heading north along the winding roads of Dover Heights up to Watson's Bay. It was through running that I found one of my favorite places in the city, Dudley Page Reserve, a quiet park on a hill where you could look across the river to the bustling city centre, from the quiet comfort of the eastern suburbs. Without running, I may never have found this spot. Journalist Nicola also found running a useful tool when she relocated to Spain. When I moved to a coastal town near Bilbao, the first thing I did was go for a run, she says. I didn't have a smartphone to check where I was, so I just went out. It was so great to get out and run after the plane journey and was the best way to first see the place. I ran along the promenade as far as I go and then ran up steps to the main part of the town past a cute little bar that I mentally clocked for a potential future visit. A few days later I joined a running tour of nearby Bilbao. It was really cool as I first saw the famous Guggenheim by running towards it and then right past it. I'll never forget it. Patrick always packs his trainers for a trip. On holidays, I just always run. Mainly because I've probably eaten a lot and feel like I have to move, but also because you just see things differently. I do struggle in the heat though. I remember running in Dubai and that was insanely hot. However, going smartphone free doesn't always work out. When I first moved abroad, I picked up running as a means to get to know my new neighborhood, says a runner who goes by the name of DCPR and blogs at My Story of I. One particular afternoon I decided to broaden my area to the city, which meant taking a left where I knew I would be exiting my neighborhood. I had previously avoided this as I did not want to end up lost. But I was really feeling courageous that day and figured that even if I got lost I could just reverse my route and I would be on my home again. Plus, the Maps feature on my phone became my best friend over the period. Unfortunately, my phone decided to have an unexpected malfunction, turning itself off and not coming back on. I was alone, lost and didn't know how to get back. As it was becoming later the temperature started to drop so I had to hurry up and get myself inside. Luckily I found a tram station, but I got confused and ended up traveling to a neighborhood with a similar name to mine. Long story short, I ended up getting off the tram, finding a metro station and realizing I was at the end of the line, miles from home and freezing cold. I eventually got home later that night and never ran that route again. While running in unknown areas can be exciting, it also has its drawbacks, especially as a female. I was happy as Larry running along the canal near my parents' house at the weekend, enjoying the rolling fields and lack of people. It feels like you're constantly dodging people when running in London, until I saw 3 men cycling towards me in a line, taking up the entire towpath. I was sexually assaulted by a man on a bike a few years ago, so I'm often wary of male cyclists when it's dark and/or there's no one else around. The men got closer and weren't moving out of my way, so I started to panic, realizing that I hadn't seen another human for miles, knowing I'd be powerless if they attacked me. However, they just made a passing comment I couldn't hear as I had my headphones in, and cycled on by. I was so shaken that I burst into tears. This might sound ridiculous if you've never been attacked by a stranger, but once it happens to you, you realize that you're not invincible and that there are bad people in the world. Thus, that incident did make me realize that perhaps I shouldn't have been running completely alone down a lonely canal towpath. Similarly, a few years ago, I was exploring the streets around my old flat. I found myself moving down an extremely dark, lonely road when I noticed a laser pen beam wiggling in front of me. It wasn't long after I'd been attacked and I freaked out, as I didn't know where the laser was coming from, or where the hell I was. So, take this into account when hitting the streets, be extra careful at night or when sunset isn't far off, and listen to your body. If you get bad vibes, get out of that area. If you're in a new city, Google the areas you'll be running in to gauge whether they're places you should avoid, aka canal towpaths with high crime rates. Obviously, it's important to go out and enjoy yourself, but safety is paramount. Keep an eye on landmarks to avoid getting lost. I didn't get lost in Bilbao as I just kept the sea on the right-hand side of me, explains Nicola. If you're about to go down a forked path, remember that it will look different when you're coming back the other way, so register something obvious that can help you realize you're on the right track. Ask locals for good running routes. While it can be fun exploring on your own, if you've got limited time, you may as well make sure you hit the jackpot. Take some emergency cash, your travel card. You might end up getting so carried away that you run 18 miles up a canal and have to get public transport back. Away from home? Write down your address. This might sound obvious, but I once got stuck in the bus park at Disneyland Orlando late at night because none of us had written down the address of the motel we were staying at. We barely knew its name. Don't be like us. Sometimes the most beautiful time to go is sunset, sunrise. The best thing is sunsets or sunrise, says Patrick. It's painful getting up at 5:30 a.m. but watching the sunrise when you're running is pretty med. Don't get stressed with your route. I have a route at the minute which loops Embankment in St. James' Park, and I don't think I've come the same way home yet, says Patrick. Don't get stressed out. Unless you're following a tight schedule for a race or whatever, running should be about clearing your head and relaxing. Take screenshots of your map. Sometimes you lose signal, or your apps crash, and you're left stranded. Take screenshots of the map area to help you out should this happen. Keep safety at the forefront of your mind. Run without headphones when there aren't many people around. Make sure your phone is fully charged, and be alert to the people around you. It's also a good idea to tell someone the general area you're going, even if you're alone in a foreign country and that person is a hotel concierge, hostel receptionist. Chances are, nothing bad will happen, but if you injure yourself and are stuck somewhere, they can raise the alarm. So, if you're feeling inspired, get those trainers on and head out. You never know what you might stumble across. More, how running the London Marathon changed my life. More, how to start running when you think you hate running. More, does sharing your achievements online make you run better?